Hello and welcome to the Omnex webinar, CQI Assessments by OEMs, Cost versus Reward. Today's presenter is Craig Thompson. Craig is the General Manager of Plantech Omnex. That is a division of Omnex. He has extensive management, system auditing, process improvement, lean manufacturing, Six Sigma, and problem-solving experience with a diverse group of customers from a diverse group of industries. Craig is an instructor for all CQI and NADCAP courses with Omnex. While at Omnex, he has trained over 150 personnel in various CQI standards, how to properly perform the assessments, and how to utilize assessments to improve their organizations. During this webinar, if you have any questions for Craig, please enter them in the Q&A box, and he will get them to the best of his ability at the end of the webinar. This webinar is being recorded, and someone from Omnex will reach out to you with how to access the recording after the webinar. All right, Craig, you can take it away.
Sorry about that. Helps if you unmute. I was double muted. So I appreciate that, Miles. Thank you. So good morning, everybody. Haven't done one of these for a while. I've been busy doing assessments and traveling all over. So I do apologize a little bit if my voice is a little bit different or sounds a little rough. Not only do I trade time zones, but I also trade climates, obviously. But today we're going to talk about CQI assessments and kind of some of the trends that are going on. And why OEMs and some tier ones or suppliers are starting to do more of the assessments. So we're going to talk about this a little bit today. Okay. So I appreciate everybody being here and taking a little bit out of your busy schedules. So just a little bit about Omnex. Right? Some of you may have been to an Omnex class before, or an Omnex webinar, or seen us around. But we are based out of Ann Arbor, Michigan. We have offices around the globe. We've been doing these types of things. The company was started back in 1985. But we have quite a few. If you was to total up everybody's experience within Omnex, we would have probably quite a few hundreds of years altogether. We have over 700 employees across the globe with regional offices in key areas. In different countries like Europe, down in Brazil, Asia. And we handle a lot of different things, all sorts of training activities around pretty much every kind of standard that's out there. We have a lot of folks within Omnex that were on the committees to write a lot of those standards, or even a lot of the automotive blue books that are out. So we have members of AIAG. We also do auditing. We do PPAP and APQP support, different things like that. This just kind of gives you a little bit of a picture where a lot of our offices are. Right? And again, we're headquartered out of Ann Arbor. I actually live in Texas, so it's not too bad. These are our 6 major markets, right? So we handle automotive, aerospace, semiconductor, medical devices, the new EV, AV stuff that's out, as well as general manufacturing. As well. There's a lot of general manufacturers that don't have rules that they follow. Right? Oops. So this is Omnex Plantech. This is the division of Omnex that I'm over as well, just to give you a little bit of a background. We handle auditing services, whether it's internal audits. We do system assessments like the CQI assessments that we're going to be talking about today. We handle supplier services, supply chain management, monitoring, APQP solutions as far as PPAP reviews, helping put PFMEAs together, DFMEAs. And we also handle staffing for contract personnel or recruitment for full-time employees. But we handle that kind of support as well, whether it's quality and engineering related. We also have, this is a lovely new tool that we've created within the last couple of years. We've really gotten it to where it does a really good job. But we can review the PPAPs using AI and what we call OBOTs. And it looks for mistakes. It looks for making sure all the linkages are there between all of the documents. Can read the drawings and make sure that we've captured everything. So it's actually a really good tool. We're starting to use it more and more. The big thing about this is it lets us do a complete PPAP package review in a matter of minutes versus a matter of days, right? We all know doing it by hand and doing it manually, sometimes it takes a while. So just a little bit about me. Miles already said, gave you a little bit of blurb about me, just so everybody kind of knows. Was probably really close to almost a full 24 years as a quality manager and quality director. Pretty much every kind of manufacturing environment you can think of, as well as automotive, aerospace, medical device, general manufacturing. So in a lot of different places, which was really good. Along with that, I was always responsible for any special processes we had and any kind of certifications that went along with those, like welding, heat treat, plating, different things. So, which falls right in line with the CQIs that we're going to be talking about today a little bit. Okay. So some of the things we're going to go over today, the special process CQI standards, they've been in place for quite a while. Some of them have been out there for a while. There are a couple of ones that are relatively new, right? There's one that it's not even a year old yet, right? But lately there's been this little bit of lack of supplier motivation to get them done, right? Which is causing the OEMs to kind of take a little bit of notice, because there have been some quality issues arising, across the industry. So we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about CQI assessments being part of the rest of the audits you do, right? There's internal audits, there's LPAs, there's control plan audits, there's customer audits. Putting in the CQI assessments and doing them along with those audits is just another tool to make your entire system and your continual improvement program better, right? So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about some of the pitfalls, some of the struggles, and some of the things we've found as Omnex doing a lot of assessments for OEMs and tier ones. All right, so we do have first poll right here. And what it's asking is, are you currently under any obligations to comply with CQI requirements? In other words, do you have a customer out there requiring you to follow a CQI? Right. All right, so it's about split, about half and half. Right? So based on the folks that are here, right? And I know this takes a little bit of time out of your schedule, so some people can make it, some people kind of sign up for it, and then we all get tied up firefighting and things like that. But it looks like right now about half and half of the folks that are here. Some of you are required to, and some are not. The ones that are not, it might be down the road a little ways. Okay, so a little bit about the CQIs. And, I do a lot of CQI courses. These are courses that we have, right? Some of these we have, some of them we don't have yet, because there hasn't been a lot of within the industry, a lot of requirements to do them. So we don't have classes for all of these in, right? There's 18 different CQIs that are out there. If you go to the AIAG, you have to, just so everybody knows, you have to go to the AIAG store, right, where the publications are, to get the full list of 18. If you just click on AIAG and you click on quality, they only list about 14 of them in there, right? So they're not all listed within the quality section. So a little bit about this slide though, because I do like this joke in the middle, right? No, it's too late for the oversight committee, send it to the hindsight committee, right? We all kind of have had that in the past where hindsight's 2020. Okay. But a little bit about this slide. The ones that are in blue, right? The text that's in blue, those are more of the management side of your processes, right? So you have your LPH, you have the warranty, error proofing, problem solving, cost to poor quality, right? So a lot of these are on the management side, whereas the ones in black are specific to special processes on your shop floor. Okay. Now I've also highlighted a couple others. The heat treating, CQI 9 for heat treating and CQI 19 for sub-tier supplier management. Those are both currently under revision. So new revisions of those are coming out. So if you are a heat treater, right, you're obligated to do CQI 9. Just be aware in the next, I'd probably say 5 or 6 months, a new revision to CQI 9 is coming out. Okay. And then the other one over here that's highlighted with the asterisk, CQI 30, it's new. It's only been out since August of last year. And it's specific to the manufacturing of rubber from the raw material level. In other words, the folks that are making the pellets, right, for your rubber processes, right? But it does go into the actual molding and making of products as well. So it covers a lot of the stuff for rubber manufacturing. Right? So there are some CQI trends lately. Right? So a little bit about the progression. CQIs started as an initiative by AIG to reduce waste, reduce warranty claims, reduce recalls of components that were related to special processes. That's kind of how the ball got rolled by AIG. It was also a way for OEMs and tier ones to monitor the supply chain, especially with the amount of products that suppliers are making. Most places in automotive are a lower mix but high volume type of organization, right? So it was a way to help monitor that supply chain. Then they turned it into supplier self-assessments because it started getting so big that they just didn't have the resources to maintain doing the audits themselves, right? So they turned them into supplier self-assessments as a way for suppliers to monitor themselves and improve their own processes without too much involvement, right? We all know sometimes when the customer gets involved, the continual improvement project gets quite a bit bigger than it was going to be. Right? They are meant to be a preventative action tool, right? It's to help you identify things. And if you'll notice, if you read through any of the CQIs before, there's a lot of focus on analyzing data and looking for trends around your preventative maintenance program or your calibration program or your shop floor controls on your equipment, right? They want you to look at those trends in that data to make adjustments and make changes to your process before things start going out of control, right? But currently, this last bullet point right here, right? The last bullet point, many OEMs are starting to look at there may need to be a little bit more focus and additional evaluations for the special processes, heat treat, plating, coatings, right? Welding, a lot of those special processes, because they are starting to see some issues, right? So that's kind of where it's headed. And we're going to talk about that in some slides later on. But that's kind of the timeline. So in Forbes in 2021, right, a lot of the recent recalls, and it's quoted in here, were caused by preventable errors in processing. More process and oversight on cost of poor quality by suppliers is what it's going to take to bring that number back down. Okay. So like I said, that's kind of, and we're going to talk about that as well. Omnex has done quite a few assessments, and we've kind of been seeing the same things. So, and then the chart just kind of shows the number of recalls lately, right? So you can see early on in the 2000s, it was fairly low. 2015 kind of had a big jump. That was more related to an airbag issue, right? We've all kind of heard about that. It was in the news for quite a while. But you can see since 2015, the number has still stayed up pretty high. And that's the part that everybody's kind of getting a little bit antsy about. So industry-wide, the goal is to bring this down, right? Even as much, the warranty CQI, which is 14, right? So there is a warranty process CQI, and the big focus on that is to reduce the number of incidents, right? So there's been a cultural shift in that CQI. So not really is it tracking dollar amounts anymore, right? It's starting to track the number of incidents. So that was kind of the first step in helping to bring these numbers down. Okay. So assessment issues. These are the big five that we've seen, right? So Omnex has done in the last couple of years, probably close to 200 CQI assessments throughout the supply chain, right? From tier 1 to tier X. And we've done those on behalf of suppliers who contact us and, hey, can you come and do an outside third-party type assessment so we can get like a fresh set of eyes to look at our stuff. We've had some OEMs reach out and say, hey, can you go look at some of these suppliers? We've actually had some tier 1s kind of do the same thing, right? So it's across the board. It's not just say, OEMs are saying, thou shalt go do this, right? So it's across the board. Everybody in the supply chain is kind of jumping on board with bringing some things down. But that being said, the amount of assessments that we've done just for Omnex, right? And I've done quite a few of them. These are the big five of the things that we're seeing, right? So a lot of the unsatisfactory ratings that we find are basic QMS topics, things not, processes not being followed, work instructions not being detailed enough or written in a manner that everybody can fully understand them, right? Revisions not matching, different things like that. Also, AP/QP programs aren't fully realized. We're starting to see that a little bit. Control plans don't match the PFMEA. Control plans and PFMEAs don't match the CQI requirements, right? So I also do a lot of the CQI classes, and I've had, some of you may have been to some of my CQI courses. One of the things I really always point out in there is control plans, even though they're approved control plans, right? Once you get the requirement to follow a CQI, the CQI now becomes a customer specific requirement, and it has potentially different frequencies for inspections and tests. Those need to be reflected on the control plan for that process. Even though your control plan is approved, you also have a CQI requirement, which is a CSR, and per IETF, you have to follow all the CSR requirements, right? So that's one of the other big things we find. Another big area is maintenance programs don't account for all the equipment. And you can kind of say the same thing about calibration. So that's another thing to watch out for. And then one of the biggest ones we find is folks just don't understand the CQI requirements. Right? So I get a lot of students in the CQI courses lately. I would say over the last 12 to 18 months, of a lot of the students that come to the class are coming to the classes because they've been dinged on an IATF audit for not having formalized CQI training, right? But I can tell you, even when they come just to get the check mark in the box, right? Everybody takes stuff away. They're going, oh, we did not understand that, or we did not realize that was what the requirement was asking for, right? So there's a lot of that they take away. Right. So poll number 2. Would you rather an OEM or the customer do the assessments? Right. And I should have added another thing on here. I apologize. I should have said, would you rather an OEM or a customer perform the CQI, or would you rather do it yourself? Right. So I should have put a neither on here, I guess. I apologize for that. So Anyway, that is, yeah, well, we all make mistakes, right? That's mine. That's my one for today. So, all right. So by a good margin, more people would rather just the customers do them, right? Than the OEM, which is true. I find that a lot. If I would have had the neither on here, in other words, do them yourself, that probably would have been by far the biggest choice, right? Which is okay. I understand. Okay. So we're going to talk about a little bit about the benefits of doing them, right? So there are some core principles in CQIs. You want to look at the system and its processes, right? So you want to look at your overall heat treat system and then all the individual processes that are within that system. Same way with welding, same way with warranty. You want to look at your warranty system, and then every warranty program has some sub processes in there, right? So you want to make sure you take a look at the entire thing. That's a lot. That's one of the other areas I find is people overlook things. They think, oh, well, we're already doing that because we have an IATF certificate. So they kind of overlook it. They don't look at it as hard, right? So you got to look at the whole system and all of its processes. Another good one, use statistical analysis, right? Analyze the data, look for trends, right? Try to fix problems before they become a problem, in other words, right? Number 3, I can't stress enough as a core principle. You got to use cross-functional teams. Ask the doers, right? If you've been to any of my CQI classes or any of your folks have, if your employees have been to my CQI classes, you can ask them. I stress that a lot. Ask the people that are actually doing the process, right? And involve them in the CQIs, right? Because they're going to give you the real story. Right? So, along with that, though, empower all of your stakeholders to identify problems. I know every organization has that. Oh, anybody can initiate a corrective action, or anybody can initiate a continuous improvement project, right? But one of the big things is you need to make sure that that's a cultural thing, right? Not just the lip service that says, oh, yeah, when the auditor shows up, oh, yeah, we let everybody do that kind of stuff, right? But you really have to have that culture driven that they can and that they do, right? Because like I said, the doers can give you the real answer and they know what improvements need to be made. Right? So let them identify, have them help. And then number 5, focus on both the internal and the external customers. Right? When you're doing the CQI assessment, you got to look at, hey, what are we seeing internally? What is the next operation seeing? Right? Or what problems are they having? And don't just focus on just the external customer, right? The ones that are requiring the CQI. All right. Some other benefits, though, right? It really helps drive the process owner and team member accountability when you do the assessments. Right? You have creative and solution creation for common problems. So what this is really talking about is you're going to see the same type of problems. Like if you have multiple CQIs, I know a lot of organizations, they do welding, they do heat treat, they might do casting, they might do plating, right? There's a lot of common issues across those different CQIs, right? And a lot of the CQIs have the exact same questions in them, right? So if you're seeing it on one, you're probably seeing it on some of the others, right? So one of the benefits is you can see where these common issues are. It also helps with your ability and adaptability to make changes, right? Using that trend analysis that I talked about, right? Looking at the different things that are out there that, are starting to go wrong. Let's fix it before it actually happens. It can also help with the team member morale, especially when they're part of the solution to fix problems. If you involve the doers, the changes that you make are going to be 2 things. 1, they're going to be more apt to actually stay in place, right? And 2, they're probably going to be more value added. So And just remember, there's all sorts of additional tools out there how to monitor your program effectiveness and efficiency. It is one of the requirements for IETF. You have to monitor process effectiveness and process efficiency. Using these CQIs can help do that, right? Because there's a lot of checks you're doing. Maybe we need to take a few process steps out. Right? Maybe we need to add another process step in there, right? Because things are getting missed. So it helps you with your program effectiveness and efficiency. Then the other good thing is when you're doing really well and you're doing the assessments and you're using them as value added and you're using them as a preventative action tool, it can open up new opportunities to get new products or new programs, right? And it can also improve your customer satisfaction ratings. As a quality manager and a quality director in my past, there are plenty of times that I've been in the doghouse with the OEM or the customer, and our customer satisfaction rating was not very good. Right? I do like this though. This joke over here in the corner. What fits your busy schedule better? Exercising for an hour a day or being dead 24 hours a day? Right? So what fits your manufacturing schedule? Taking a half a day to do a CQI assessment or customer satisfaction rating being in the yellow all the time? Right? And this kind of fits me because, I hate to exercise. So I should probably do more of it. So poll number 3. Have your your CQI assessments been beneficial to your QMS? We do have a question. I will look at that while you're doing the poll. Okay, so I'm going to answer while everybody's finishing up the poll. I'm going to answer. There was a question from one of our participants today. And I'm going to read the question just so everybody can hear it because you're probably not the only one asking the question. So it says, what's the likelihood of receiving an IETF finding regarding not being 100% compliant to a manufacturing process CQI? What if certain items are constantly not green, but we pass an OEM on-site CQI assessment? So you're not going to get an IETF finding for not being 100% compliant, right? Because your process is supposed to be continually improving, right? So even though you're constantly not green, are you doing the actions and putting this? That's what the auditors are going to ding you for. Okay, so if you're taking the corrective action steps to fix the problem, right, or trying to get better or trying to get back into green, and you have an action plan and you're actively working it, you're not going to get dinged. If you're constantly not in the green and you're just like, we don't care, it is what it is, right? Then they're probably going to ding you for your continual improvement program, excuse me, not being the best, right? Or not being fully utilized. So hopefully that kind of helps answer your question. But no, they won't do a finding just because you're not in the green. Okay, and the answers to the poll. Okay, so a lot of you are saying yes, which is good. And there are a few NAs, right? Which I'm guessing maybe because you don't have a CQI requirement currently, right? Which is okay. Right? But there are a few no's. So hopefully based on some of these next few slides, the ones that are no's can take some stuff and maybe get into the yes category, right? Because at the end of the day, you want these assessments to be value added, right? Not just putting a check mark in the box to make the customer happy that, yes, we did our assessment. Right? Which I can honestly say I have seen a lot of that. I haven't actually, you can't see it done, but just based on a company's last assessment they did on themselves versus the assessment I do, right? Because I've been asked to go do a lot of these. You can see the difference. And a lot of that difference is you can kind of attribute it to, they just put a check mark in the box. Yep, we're all green across the board. Right? So I can tell you one organization, and I won't mention any names, right? There was an organization I did the CQI assessment at for welding. Their last assessment was all in the green, and it was only done like 3 months before I was there, completely in the green. But they had a quarantine cage full of welded parts that were non-conforming for a variety of reasons. So as we were doing the assessment, I kind of went through and looked at different things and talked with them. And we found out most of the non-conforming ones for welding that were in their quarantine cage were tied back to a CQI process step not being followed. Right. So you can kind of tell, right? So, but there are some other pitfalls we're going to talk about. Okay. So these are the biggest ones. And like I said, Omnex has done a couple hundred of these over the last couple of years, right? And not just in the US, across the globe, right? So that's everywhere. And like I said, OEMs have asked us to come in or go into certain suppliers. Customers, like tier 1 suppliers, have asked us to go into certain suppliers. Suppliers have asked us to come in, right? And a lot of that stems from when, suppliers will come to the CQI courses and they'll say, hey, how about you come in one time, give us a fresh set of eyes, right? Kind of help us get back on the right track. Okay. So that being said, that's also where a lot of this comes from, is stuff we've seen across the board, right? So I can say that one of the big ones is not knowing the requirements. Okay. That being said, if you do send people to CQI training, right? So if you send people to one of our CQI courses, include the maintenance folks, because there's every one of these CQIs, especially the special process CQIs, have a lot of maintenance requirements in there, have a lot of calibration requirements in there, right? So sending some calibration folks and maintenance folks is very beneficial, right? Or what happens is your quality folks come, they take the class, they go back and tell maintenance, hey, you got to do all this stuff. And maintenance is like going, what are you talking about, right? So organizations that have sent calibration folks and maintenance folks, it's been a lot more beneficial for them. Right? And also your MEs, your manufacturing engineers, quality engineers, and of course, process owners. I don't get enough process owners in the classes. I will say the vast majority of CQI courses, I'm the one that teaches them, which is good. And I don't see enough process owners in there, which would be very beneficial as well. Mostly I get just the personnel that are going to be doing the assessment. That makes sense. So another big one, another pitfall, don't recreate the wheel, right? Modify things that you have to work, because people are already used to seeing documents you have and the way you do things and what your work instructions look like and how things are formatted. Modify those to fit the CQI. Don't just arbitrarily recreate stuff, right? Because now it gets more confusing, right? You're just adding extra layers. Okay. The other thing, and I put this in here, the CQI assessment is supposed to be a wrench, not a hammer, right? It's a wrench, make adjustments. That's what it's for. Right? It's not a hammer to pound your process into place. Okay, so that's why I put that on there. Right. You do plenty of audits already, right? Like I said, you're doing internal audits, you're doing LPAs, right? You're doing control plan audits. There's probably a few others. Customers are coming in, right? Use the CQI assessments with your audit program, right? And if you look at all the CQIs out there, all of them that you have to do an assessment for, because not all of them require an assessment, but all the ones that require assessment, to be an assessor, to actually do the assessments, one of the requirements is you have to be an experienced internal auditor, right? So take advantage of that. Use them with your other audits. Okay? CQI assessments are only annual, right? At a minimum, you do one a year. So it's not like you're going to be doing these CQIs. You don't have to do these every month, like some of your internal audits and LPAs are almost daily, right? Control plan audits, once a month, once a quarter, whatever you have as your organization, right? But CQI assessments, you only have to do them once a year at a minimum. Right? So adding that into your audit schedule It's not that difficult, I promise. Right? One of the other biggest pitfalls that I see is just the lack of motivation. A lot of organizations don't understand the benefit versus the cost of doing the CQI. But like I said, to do the CQI, the assessments, it's only once a year. Right? Now, there is some legwork you got to do when you implement all the requirements, right? And maintaining those, right? But the cost still is lower than the benefit. These CQI assessments really can help, and following them can really help out your processes and help out your overall QMS, and again, help raise that customer satisfaction level. And like I said, it's cheaper to do a one-day assessment than to recall non-conforming products, right? If you have to recall products from your tier one or the OEM, and you're shutting those lines down, that's going to cost you way more than it would have been to do a one-day assessment and find out these problems ahead of time. So all that being said, and based on what I've seen with Omnex and what Omnex has seen doing all these assessments like I was talking about, here's what the customer perception is currently, okay? And this is from talking to OEMs, because they, like I said, they've asked us to go into suppliers. Tier ones have asked us to go into suppliers. So this is kind of what the perception is, right? We all know people's perception is their reality too, right? So keep that in mind. But OEMs and customers, what they're seeing. So a lot of recent studies have shown that the average cost of poor quality across the board is 10% of gross revenue, which is fairly high. Right? Everywhere I've been as a quality manager and a quality director, my goal everywhere I was to keep our cost of poor quality under 2%. Right. So some people do it as a percentage of sales, some people do it as a percentage of gross revenue, whatever it might be. But the studies have shown us right now it's about 10%. Right? So they're also kind of seeing that there's an inability to measure your own, suppliers measuring their own system and processes for effectiveness. Like I said, some of that has to do with the lack of motivation. Some people have been doing CQI assessments for the last 10, 12 years. And maybe they've switched personnel, quite a few times since then, right? So they are kind of seeing that inability. And then the other thing that they're seeing is across the board, a lot of assessments are coming in. Everything's marked green. Everything's marked as we're satisfactory, right? But yet they're still seeing quality related issues from special processes coming in. So their thoughts are, right, and a few of them have actually said this to me, that they're thinking either the suppliers don't care to make improvements or they don't understand the need to improve their processes. So like I said, this is kind of the perception that's out there. So that being said, if it doesn't start to turn around, more OEMs and customers are going to kind of have no choice but to maybe impose some more costs. They're going to start doing more audits themselves, more assessments themselves, right? I never really worked at any of the big OEMs, right? Whether it was automotive or aerospace. So most of my experience has been somewhere in the supply chain, right? It was never fun when the customers started coming in to do more audits. It really wasn't, especially if you are in the quality world. It just adds to your frustration sometimes, right? But that's kind of where it's headed, right? And like I said, it's all about the perception up here, right? So here's what we can be done, right? What we can do as a supply chain. Okay? So like I said, I've asked a lot of folks that have come to my CQI courses and when I've been doing assessments over the last couple of years. So the average cost to do an assessment is only 0.001% of gross revenue. Okay? I mean, it is very low cost to do an assessment versus your cost of poor quality, based on the studies, is at 10%. So it is an investment of time, training, and money into the program, but it helps you identify those risks. It helps you identify those trends. It helps you identify areas you can improve your process that will help drive the waste down, will help drive the cost of poor quality down, right? Help drive down the number of mistakes. So another thing is you need to be, show that willingness to create system and processes that add value, right? To try and turn the trend around. Right? Because like I said, if we don't turn the trend around within the supply chain across the board, more people, are going to start getting more audits from customers, OEMs and tier ones. Okay. Also, the biggest thing when you're doing the assessments, be honest with yourself. You're doing it as an internal assessment. Be honest with yourself, right? Just like you're supposed to be with internal audits. Be honest with yourself. If it's wrong, mark it wrong, fix it, right? Improve it. Do those things, right? I can honestly tell you it's better to air that dirty laundry out inside your own four walls rather than the customer coming in and now it's aired outside your four walls, right? Because OEMs and tier ones are going to take it back to their organizations. They're going to say, look, this supplier is doing this. And then way more people are going to know, right? So be honest with yourself. Right? Keep that stuff in-house. Right? Okay. All right. So again, like I said, average automotive suppliers cost per quality is 10%. It's way less than even 1% of gross revenue to do an assessment. Okay. Even if you factor in sending people to the training, doing your own assessments, it's still going to be cheaper. Right. Because if customers and tier ones and OEMs have to start coming to your facility to do audits and assessments, you're going to end up footing the bill somehow. Right? So I like this quote down here, and I couldn't find who said it. I know it's been around for probably since Moses was a kid, but I don't know who actually said it. Right? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Right? So the more stuff you can do yourselves, the better off. All right. So this brings us to our last poll. Are you interested in outsourcing your CQI assessments? We have a lot of suppliers now that have reached out to Omnex and said, hey, we want you to handle our assessments once a year. Right? That way, because we're not a customer, right? We're not an OEM, we're not a tier one, but we are an outside set of eyes, right? Which, being outside, we honestly have no problem being honest either, right? So it's just kind of a poll to see if you're interested in that kind of stuff, because we do offer that, like I said at the very beginning. And we have another question while we looking. Okay. So let me answer the poll first, right? So it looks like some are saying yes and some are saying no, which is okay, right? There's nothing saying that you have to. There's nothing in the CQIs that say, hey, you have to get somebody outside. Just remember, if you don't want to outsource them, make sure you look at those requirements of who can do the assessments. That's another big thing that I see a lot is there are some requirements, right? You got to have experience in the system and process that you're doing. You also have to have, right, the internal auditing experience, right? So there are some requirements to do the assessment yourself, which is completely fine. Right? I was just kind of interested to see, but there were some that said yes. So we'll talk about that here coming up in the next few slides. All right, so somebody has a question. I'm going to read it. There was a big recent push by one of the OEM. I'm not going to say who it was, okay? We'll keep names out to protect the guilty, right? Does that make sense? So there was a recent big push by one of the OEMs to do CQI assessments across the industry. I will say that is true. Omnex has been helping out with that. And it's across the globe, right? It's not just US located. So who sent that question? If you want my email, I'll talk about it at the very end. But my email, if you want to reach out, I can probably give you a little bit more information than sharing it all here for the group, right? But yes, it is true. So there is an OEM, but that makes sense. Okay. Right. So a little bit about how Omnex can help for that percentage that said yes, right? And for others, you might realize, hey, down the road, hey, yeah, maybe we need some help, right? So we're not just a training company, right? We do a lot of stuff. We even do software, right? But we have a lot of best in class kind of approaches for implementations, for auditing, assessments, trainings. So we're also on the forefront of the latest standards and stuff, right? And like I said, there's a couple of the CQIs that are under revision right now, right? And there's, the rubber one is fairly new if you're in the rubber manufacturing world, right? We do offer on-site and virtual different types of things. It is kind of hard to do the assessments virtually. I have had to do one, and it was tough. I'm not gonna lie, because you need to see the process. You need to ask questions. So assessments really can't be done virtually, but a lot of the training classes are. Okay. Like I said, we have virtual classes, right? Okay. So these are some of the special processes that we offer, right? So we have some NADCAP courses. Those are aerospace specific, just so everybody knows. I don't know if anybody here's aerospace background, but NADCAP is the aerospace version of the CQIs, kind of on steroids, not gonna lie. They're a little bit more involved than the CQIs, right? So these are the CQI courses that we currently have. We are developing the other three, right? Which is, design review based on failure modes, error proofing. And then there's one more. I went blank all of a sudden. I can't remember what it is. I went blank. But yeah, there's three other ones that we're doing, and then we'll have all 18. Right. So these are just some of the courses that we have. Right. So if you need to send courses, like I said, there's been a lot of IATF auditing lately. And in those audits, they have made comments and given people some minor findings for not having formalized CQI training. Right. So do keep that in mind if it does happen. Like I said, I get a lot of those participants in my class, which is great because I understand you got to make auditors happy. I understand completely. But like I said, they all take something away from my courses, right? Or even the other folks within Omnex that teach the CQI course. Everybody usually takes some stuff away. They're going, oh, well, we didn't quite think of that. Right? Or, yeah, we're not doing that fully, right? But it is a good way to just understand what's the requirements in the CQI. We talk about each one of the questions. So, and we talk about which process tables are applicable to you. So we also have some other courses. Integrated management, problem solving, risk management, right? So we have those courses as well. And then this is just a list of upcoming CQI courses and kind of the dates of when they are. So if you're thinking that you need to send some folks to CQI training, or you've been dinged recently on an audit and need to go to training, these are just some of the dates. And like I said, it can be done on site. We do a lot of these courses virtual. You'll see all these say virtual classroom. We can also come on site, so you can throw more people in there, right? We do that quite a bit as well. So that being said, I appreciate everybody's time today. If there's any other questions, you can put them in the Q&A and I can go through those. Just so everybody knows, my email, just so everybody knows, is cthompson@omnex.com, right? So it's just C Thompson instead of info, right? If any of you have questions, because, maybe you don't ask here and next week you're going, oh, I should ask this, right? Feel free to reach out. Not a problem. And I'll get back to you the same day. I have a lot of stuff going on. I'm teaching classes, doing assessments, doing audits. Got all sorts of stuff going on, but I might not get to it like immediately, but you'll get something back that day. Like, I can tell you that I'm pretty good about that part. So, I don't see any other questions. Great. All right. If nobody has any other questions, I will let everybody get here. I know we finished a little bit early, but again, gives you a little bit of time before lunch, right? So I appreciate everybody's time for being here. I know you had to take time out of your current busy schedule, and work was probably still going on in the background, right? So I appreciate it. Hope there is one more question. Okay. But I appreciate everybody's time. Okay. So on that note, I will let everybody go, and I hope to see you at one of my classes or my next webinar or something like that. So I appreciate everybody. Thank you.